Okay, so now that your Raspberry Pi is hopefully booted up and connected to your computer, what you want to do is you want to take a quick peek inside, and you can cheat by looking for that little green LED. If it's solid, that's a good sign. That means that you have power to your Raspberry Pi as well as you have the data coming through. So, and make sure you're connected to, like I said, the second port here, not the first port closest to the end. The second port's going to provide data as well to your computer. So, because we didn't set up the Wi-Fi before, this technically needs a Wi-Fi connection, so we need to provide the credentials to do that. So in order to do that, we're going to connect directly to our computer, and we're going to be able to open up a web page that is accessible because of the Raspberry Pi, and be able to give the credentials for that. So let's do that. So if everything's connected, you know, sometimes once it boots up, it might take a few minutes for everything to get loaded, so just be a little bit patient. Give it about 2-3 minutes, and then once it's booted up, you should be able to visit osteri.local. So it's osteri.local. And if everything is connected, you will see this printer portal, which is going to be coming right from your Raspberry Pi. So you can see right now there's no Wi-Fi set up. So let's do that. If you click down here and you see no networks here, just click can't find your Wi-Fi, rescan. And now it says there's 24 Wi-Fi connections found. So I'm just going to pick my connection here. You want to pick the one that is behind your firewall. So if you have a guest Wi-Fi and you have an office Wi-Fi, pick the office Wi-Fi. Don't put the Raspberry Pi on the guest Wi-Fi, because it will make it easier if you ever need to go back to this page for the Raspberry Pi. Because if you connect to the guest one, you might not be able to access it from your other computers. So it's better to connect it to the strongest Wi-Fi in your Steri, as well as ideally if you have a separate Wi-Fi for guests, don't connect it to that one, connect it to your office one, okay? So let's do that. And so if everything goes according to plan, it should connect to the Wi-Fi, and it should say successfully connected to the Wi-Fi, and you'll see that Wi-Fi setup page is all changed up. So the next thing is to get the connection to our OpenSteri account. So if you haven't done that, let's set it up now. We're going to walk through that. So I'm going to create an account for us on OpenSteri.com for your clinic. So this is going to be an example one. So let's click Get Started. So go to OpenSteri.com, click Get Started. Your clinic name, so I'm going to call this OpenSteri Clinic. My name is going to be Sage Aurora. My address is going to be OpenSteri@auroradental.com. Password is going to be 1234. Perfect. So we're going to click Create Account. So this is where you're going to add your team members. I'd also recommend, if you want to change your PIN, would be a good time to do it now. So I'm just going to make my PIN simple. Let's say you have another team member, Sonia. Perfect. So we've got the team members added here. We're going to click Next. Your sterilizers. So this will be, I'd use this to identify your sterilizers. If you have multiple ones, you can say, for example, the top sterilizer, the bottom sterilizer. I would use the name of the sterilizer as well. So I can say like top Lexa, or for example, I can say top Midmark. Brand, this just helps you kind of identify it. And then serial number is ideal, because in case you ever go through repairs or anything like that, you can always know which sterilizer you're taking out, because if you have multiple ones that are named Midmark, for example, it might be a little hard to identify with that serial number. So it can be helpful for that. So okay. Once your sterilizers are added, so if you have multiple ones, just go ahead and keep adding all the ones that you have in the office. Hit Next. Add your incubators. If you have just the one, you can call it like the default one, for example, or if you have multiple incubators, you can name them like, the Maxell incubator, or the 3M test one. So based on what you have, you can change how many hours and minutes, or how many hours or minutes it takes for the incubation time to happen. For the Maxell ones, I know it's 24 hours, so that's already preset. And then also it automatically adds the number of rows and columns in that incubator. Once your incubators are set, this is kind of your flex. So in OpenSteri, you can decide if you want to customize, or you can customize what items are available for you to package. So for example, if you have kits that you make for hygiene, for restorative, or for radiographs and stuff like that, you have the option to customize as much as you want. You do have a bunch of templates for helping you start with some common items in the office that you may package. So for example, if you do a lot of endo, you may have things like endo clamps, forceps, file blocks, etc. If you like all these items, you can just select the item here and you can have all the items in endo available to you. And similarly, like for example, if you have all the hand pieces, I'm going to select all of those. If you don't, for example, use endo pluggers separately, you have them part of your kit, I would then just leave these off and just make a new item for endo kit in the next step. So adding items will come in the next step. This is just to help you select some of the easy items in the template. So you don't have to use all of them. You can just use the ones that you want. And if you need more items, you can add them in the next step. So this is just to kind of help you pre-fill things really quickly. For hygiene, I don't want the loose scaler. I want my hygiene kit. I want my SteriMate, my cavity tips. I do like my imaging. Operative, yes, by block, V3 ring. Bird block, and again, these are all customizable. It's just a starting point for you. I don't know if you're familiar with the Christmas tree bird, probably not. Loose instruments, ortho. If you have more ortho tools, you'll be able to add more, and we're always improving these templates to incorporate more things in it. Surgical kit, elevators. Okay, so that's a good starting point. When you hit next, it will bring those items that you selected into your system, but again, you have the flexibility. So for example, this is missing an endo kit, which I want to add to my item, so I'm going to go here and click endo kit. So because I added it to the endodontic category, it's automatically populated here, and I can click add item. So now my endo kit shows up in my endodontic tab. So now let's say you had another category you wanted to add. So for example, if I was missing something like a general category, so you go to the bottom and click add Steri item. I'm going to call it, like for example, if I'm missing the general instrument, or let's say you have an associate and they have very specific instruments for them, so you can call it like Dr. Aurora's Risto kit, and you can actually add a category for just Dr. Aurora if you wanted to. And so now you've got yourself a separate category, which is going to be alphabetically organized. So if you go up here, Dr. Aurora has their own category. So now you have his resto kit within that category. So if you had more instruments for Dr. Aurora, you can say, like, for example, let's say he brings his own heat gun or something for whatever purpose. And then, for emotional support, he needs a teddy bear. Emotional support. So now you have all these things available for sterilization for Dr. Aurora. So, that's how flexible it is. So you decide how you want to organize your system, and these are going to all be items that you can print stickers for your sterilization. So once you're happy with that, hit next, and you can always come back and edit these later on. So it's just a good starting point. Now let's do the printer setup. So hopefully all your Raspberry Pi and everything is set up already at this point, and you already have this portal open. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to click Add Printer. We're going to click Start Setup in the Steri printer. So connection instructions here. We already connected the Raspberry Pi to the computer using the micro USB cable, which is the one that's plugged in to here to the computer. The LED is already green, and we already know that's working. So continue to next step. So we're going to copy this code here. There's a little copy button there. So this is a unique code for your OpenSteri.com. This will tell your Raspberry Pi to always talk to your OpenSteri.com. Okay. We can click Open Setup Page, which is going to take you back to the same page that you're already on there. So I can just close that tab. And then in the Join code here, we're going to paste that code that we just copied over. I'm going to click Join OpenSteri. And if everything works, you'll see successfully joined, and you can see now the printer is connected. So we're done with this page here. We can close this. And if you go back here, we can hit Setup Complete, and you can see actually it's picked it up. So Steri printer is here. You can see the version number of software that's loaded on here. And you can see it's paired, and actually the last seen time was today at 8:50, so that's perfect. Now the print test label won't work because remember, we're still connected to the computer. So let's actually move it over now. So I'm going to unplug the USB from the computer, so it's no longer powered on. Remember, the port that we were using before, that was for the data. So that actually now will become the printer port, and we're going to change this micro USB to the first port to provide power. So before, the computer was actually powering the Raspberry Pi and talking to it. Now we're just powering the Raspberry Pi with the power brick that we got with the Raspberry Pi before. So let's do that. So I'm just going to plug it in back here. So I've got my Raspberry Pi power brick. I'm going to plug this into my outlet. So now it's powered on, but we still need to connect the printer to it. So let's do that. Now the printer has a cable that we got in the printer box that you saw earlier in the unboxing. It's the one that goes with the USB in. So let's plug that into the back of the printer. So we got the cable. We're going to grab our printer. I'm going to just bring it over to show it to you guys. So you have the back of the printer, and you can see there's a little USB port there. Put the end that will match that port, obviously. Okay, and try not to do it all one-handed. Now the other end of that USB cable is actually a normal USB-A. So to connect this to the Raspberry Pi, we're going to use that dongle that came with the Raspberry Pi in our kit. So that's that little silver USB to micro USB connector. So this end goes into the printer. And hopefully by this point, because we've been talking so much, the Raspberry Pi is already booted up. So I'm just going to connect this to the Raspberry Pi. And if you do everything correctly, you might actually hear a beep from the printer, but sometimes, if it's already beeped before, it might not do it again. But in any case, that's printer connected. So now what I would do is I would go onto here and I would click Print Test Label. And if everything works, you heard that little sound there, you've just printed your first label. And I'm going to rip it off. So to rip it off, you actually just pull up and I'll show you. And there's be a video on how to do the actual printing of the labels and stuff. You can look at it later. But if everything goes correctly, you'll have a little sticker that says, "Welcome, test user." Super exciting stuff. So you've now actually got your printer connected to your OpenSteri. And now it's basically seamless from OpenSteri to the printer. And if there's ever anything that goes wrong, you just have to unplug the Raspberry Pi and plug it back in, and it will auto reconnect everything itself. So make sure you're always plugging the cables correctly. So the power cable, which is the black one, goes on the very end one. The data cable, which is the silver one, goes into the second port from the right side there. Okay, and that plugs into your printer. So that's how you set up your OpenSteri. So let's go to the next step.